Martin Place, Sydney's historical and cultural heart, where sandstone charm meets modern city buzz. Now, this was named after James Martin, who was a 19th century political heavyweight. This iconic hub has grown from a small street in 1874 to a pedestrian plaza by 1971, and it became a symbol of Sydney's evolution. Landmarks like the Grand Central Post Office and sleek financial headquarters make Martin Place a blend of heritage and progress. But today, it's a vibrant space for public events, street performances, and of course, office life, which is a true crossroads of history and the modern world. And it's the setting that my guest today, Houman Katoozi, has chosen for his location of inspiration.
Should we head to your inspiration spot? Cool. Let's go.
Welcome to Walking and Talking with Creatives. We're walking and talking, mate.
We are walking and talking.
Houman, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, man, of course.
This is the first video, by the way. So first of all, I appreciate you doing this.
Lucky, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And you know that I've been talking about this for what?
5 years, 16 episodes.
No.
A few months.
Well, roughly a year or so.
Okay.
But tell us a little bit about you. Like, what do you do as a day job?
So I work for Adobe in a post-sales role. It's a customer success role. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that term, but essentially what we try to do is help customers get value from what they've already purchased from Adobe. Unfortunately though, I'm not on the sexy side, so I'm not on the creative cloud side. I'm not on this side. I'm on the digital experience side. So I'm on a product called WorkFun, which I'm gonna guess most people have never heard of. But let's just leave it there.
Well, I suppose let's talk a little bit about the location, right? We're in Martin Place in Sydney, Australia. What is it about this place that you told me that inspires you?
Before we start recording, I mentioned that, well, we work about 3 blocks that way, right? So for the past 3-4 years, every time I get to the train station, usually go straight to the office. If I'm having a coffee break, I'm around the office, lunch break, around the office. So you, as a creative, you start to get this burnout of you've seen that 2-3 blocks over and over and over again, right? So you start to kind of tune out. So what I've been trying to do recently, just to overcome that challenge, is to change up my routine a little bit. And I take this walk through Martin Place, either this way or that way, to go to the office to kind of give myself a new location to look for opportunities to photograph. So I'm not burned out looking at the same 3 or 4 blocks.
I suppose we should talk about that passion. You mentioned photographs, so photography is your passion, right?
It is. I love it. I was chatting with a friend the other day and we were talking about how if I don't photograph for a day or two, I literally get this itch, this desire to pick up my camera and do something with it. I have this burning desire to want to create, and the only way I know how to is photography. It's just something in me. If I don't use my camera for a day or two, even if it's just around the house with the kids, you know, my little one goes outside to run around the garden, and if the light's nice, and I usually have my camera on me, so I'll just photograph them.
You need to capture that moment, right?
I do, and I love photographing my kids. It's just, imagine mixing up your passion with the children that you love so much. It's just, there's something there that I can't put into words, but I'll be love doing it.
I love that, but you actually have quite a unique take on photography. You don't just capture the photo, right?
So I only shoot on black and white. My camera has got. That's a great question. So I find color photography distracting. So if you're trying to tell a story, you're trying to capture a moment, you're really trying to paint a picture with light and shadows and the subject that you have. Doing photography in color for that specific scenario makes it quite challenging because you might have some flowers in the background, you might have a really blue sky in the background.
And it's distracting because it might be a little bit more vibrant than the rest of the shot, right? Okay.
So with black and white, you can really focus and take that distraction away and paint a picture with light, shadows, and a subject.
So you must hate my oversaturated photos on Instagram, right?
No comment, no comment. No, I'm just kidding. No, look, I love, don't get me wrong, I love color photography as well, but what I do day to day is black and white.
One thing I've noticed is as we're walking, you like find opportunities to take photos.
We chatted about this yesterday. I think a lot of photographers, street photographers specifically, they're a bit more in tune than your average person who's walking in the city. I'm always looking around architecture, light. Today we don't have really good light, it's pretty overcast. Sydney is really cool. Sydney is not on a grid. We've got a lot of hills in the city. We have a lot of buildings where glass, so the light reflects quite interestingly. And I guarantee you most people don't even notice that. They just walk through it, not realizing that spot they're walking through, there's a bit of reflection from the sun that's on that side of the sky, bouncing off of that building, bouncing off of this building, and hitting a little spot just right here. Or you'll see an older gentleman who's dressed beautifully, three-piece suit, tie, hat, sitting down, reading a newspaper. Things that you just don't see as much these days. I think it's really important for us to capture these candid, everyday moments in our lives, because we're just looking at some photos on Martin Place right up there, right? You got some B-roll of that. Imagine if we didn't have those photos from, what, 100 years ago, 120 years ago, not knowing what Martin Place looked like. Yeah, and what people used to wear, and what socially was accepted from reading a newspaper, as opposed to now we're all on our phones, getting in our face. So things like that to me are really important from a sense of, I want to look at my photos in 40, 50 years and see how they've aged, how society's changed, how people behave. Are we still using phones in our faces, or we have become completely digitized from is there a chip in our head now? Like, I'd love to see how the future turns out, how photos age over time. I'm looking at this gentleman over here, like he's just...
Nearly sprung.
I look for interesting people, people who have a story they're saying without even saying it out loud. I love it. I love just walking around the city, getting lost, using my camera. I feel in tune with the world, I feel in the state of flow. And if you're a creative and you listen to this, getting in a state of flow is the most incredible feeling in the world. It's so good, especially in a world where we're constantly being bombarded by Teams meetings, messages, Slack, emails, phone calls, social media. So you'll be able to just turn that off for a couple hours and be in a state of flow is incredible.
What's interesting, you know, we spoke about it earlier, about those old photos that we saw, and they were black and white, and they've come from the olden days. You're essentially doing that, but modernizing it. So you're taking the black and white photo, but you're giving it that modern twist, which I love.
That's the idea. They were documenting their time. They had no idea what Martin Place was going to look like in 100 years. Obviously, film back then was only black and white. Color film wasn't around. But to me, black and white is really important because it takes away distraction. And don't get me wrong, there are photographers out there who use color in their images and they're amazing at what they do. It's just not for me, personally.
For those playing at home, what type of camera are you using?
I've got currently a Leica M11 monochrome. Probably the most analog experience you can have in a digital camera. You can see there's very minimal dials on the top. There is almost no auto mode here, but everything is pretty analog. It's manual focus up here, a manual aperture, and I have to look through a classic viewfinder here. So this is not a digital viewfinder. You don't see what the camera is seeing. It shows you the world as it is. So it's not showing me what the sensor's seeing. I'm just looking at it, and when I bring it down, it's exactly the same as what I see the world. So I have to be really in tune with the camera and what's around me to be able to, I'm making it harder for myself in a sense. Like that's the whole point of less automation and more being in an analog mode, so you really have intention around what you're doing as a photographer.
So I feel by you making it more harder for yourself, it's actually bringing out more of your creativity, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, because you have more intention.
Absolutely.
You have to really look through a viewfinder to frame your photos. You have to know what aperture you want to be on to create a specific scene that you're looking for. So the camera's not doing all the work. I'm actually doing most of the heavy lifting, and the camera's just capturing that moment for me.
Okay, so we spoke a little bit about barriers earlier.
Yeah.
Do you have any other barriers that stop you from doing what you love doing?
If you're creative, all you want to do is create. That's all you want to do. And the few things that could get in the way is your mood. What affects your mood? Anything, everything. World news, bad news from a family member, stress at work. So a lot of those can really affect how you're feeling and if you can get in a state of flow to want to create. Sometimes light, like today, if I was sitting at home and thinking, or in the office and going, I'm at my lunch break, I'll just eat quickly and I'll go and do a bit of photography. I may not be in the mood because it's overcast, it's kind of flat from a light perspective. And it's a constant battle, right? You got to push back on those barriers, change something up, push yourself a little bit, challenge yourself a little bit, change your scenery. We talked about that a little bit, right? So if you're stuck because you've been looking at the same 4 blocks of city for the last 3 years, change your route to work. Jump off a different train station. Spend a bit of time after office hours and go for a quick stroll. So anything you can do, watch a movie. Movies are super inspirational, good ones. Music can do that as well. I love jazz. What do I say? If you want to be a good runner, people who struggle to getting out of bed in the morning to go running, put your running shoes on at night, go to bed with them at night, wake up in the morning, and you just got to jump out of bed and go out running. That's it. Take barriers away from your day, and hopefully with that friction, you're more inspired to go out and do whatever it is that you want to do.
What's next for you, mate?
Oh my gosh. So I published my very first photography book just a few months ago, which was really exciting. What's next for me is just continue doing what I love doing the most, is camera in hand, making photos outside, catching up with fellow creatives.
If you want to follow Houman, I'll leave all of his links in the description. He's got an incredible Instagram channel. His YouTube is amazing. I get a lot of inspiration from him as well. But mate, thank you so much for joining me on my first walking and talking with creatives.
Love it, man. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Fizz, would yeah.